Welcome to the Entertainment Rants Podcast, your number one opinion source for all things entertainment. Join host Marco Mazzola as he sounds off on the latest movies, TV, music, gaming, comic books, and more. Now, here's the man of the hour, Marco Mazzola.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Entertainment Rants Podcast. I am your host, Marco Mazzola. I am joined again by Amy and Sam.
Hi.
There we are.
Guess who's back?
They're back again. All right, so today, gang, we are talking about Hamilton the musical. Obviously, the Disney Plus version that they filmed and put on Disney Plus. So that's what we're talking about today. We're going to talk about the soundtrack. We're going to talk about the performances. Sam is our resident dance expert, so she'll be giving us some, talk about how the different dance movements and how it changes and things like that as we go through. We pulled up some reference stuff. Obviously, the IMDb, Slate.com has a blog basically on all the different references or what the styles kind of harken back to different artists, song by song. That's a really great one if you want to take a read on that. So let's go for our opinions first on, what we did. Or do you want to do sort of a rundown of what happens? What would you like to do first?
We can also do a little bit of a rundown on what happens, but we can do...
Go over the whole story itself?
Give the rundown first.
Yeah, do you want to talk about why we like this or how we came to like this?
We're going to go into that. We're definitely going to go into that, but maybe we do like a whole... Yeah. So if you haven't seen it, obviously, and it's from 2020, I think is when it came out, right? That's what it's on the IMDb.
Well, when it was on... Released. Yeah, when they first released the movie version.
Right, that's what we're talking about.
2016 was the original.
Yeah.
Right. Is that when they recorded it?
That's what it says when you pull up the... So that's what it says when you pull up the... you started on Disney Plus. It says 2016 Hamilton.
Okay. Gotcha. Disney Plus. Okay, but they actually released it on Disney Plus.
Yeah, it was recorded
on 2020.
Yeah, it was recorded at the Richard Rogers Theater,
right,
which is where they did the original Broadway one.
Gotcha. Okay, excellent. All right, so Amy, you've probably seen this the most. you got me to watch this show.
I did.
And as you remember, I was like, "What are you watching?"
Mm-hmm.
And it's a musical. I'm not, I think it's pretty understood. I'm not a musical person. Like I don't know music very well, and I can't carry a tune. I can memorize movies and TV shows, stuff like that. Music, song lyrics, forget it. I can't. I have a very hard time with it for whatever reason. It's just a block for me. So I don't watch a lot of musicals in that respect. However, I do love this one. After basically saying you have to watch this, need to watch this. I finally sat down and watched it with you and fell in love with it. So you know probably the most about the storyline and how it goes. So why don't you go into that?
So, it's the story, as I'm sure most people know, of Alexander Hamilton and when he first comes to this country. It starts out with a brief description of his childhood and how he came from a pretty impoverished background and was able to come to this country and through the Revolutionary War and his own, genius and ability to adapt to situations and things that he was able to do, make it be successful, but also, encounter a lot of tragedy. Like he is very big. He's the Secretary of the Treasury under Washington. And then when Adams comes in, he's out for a whole bunch of reasons. But also his son dies and there's a significant scandal where he cheats on his wife and he writes a whole pamphlet about it. So there's, along with, seeing this brilliant man who is one of the founders of our country and who did a lot. And, Miranda's one of his, reasons for writing the musical was saying this guy, we hear a lot about the other ones like Washington, Jefferson, right, all these other people, but we don't hear a lot about Hamilton. And he did a lot. Like the whole national bank that we have is him.
Right.
He set that up, and he actually made the country viable by giving a bunch of credit. Now, there's a whole lot in here that is glossed over.
Sure, there's a lot glossed over. It's a 2-hour...
It's a 2-hour musical.
Right, you can't put every detail of the man's entire life into a 2-hour musical.
And characters are recontrived and not recontrived, but are like fill roles that are convenient. Like
right, there's certain parts that the actual people they show do what they didn't actually do it.
Right. There's a confrontation
The situation
scene.
might have happened, but it was different.
The situation happened, but with different people.
Right.
But you couldn't introduce these new characters. So, and it made no sense, but it was essential to the progress of the show and all of the things. So,
right,
you needed to have it. And so, but, and also, there's the piece of it too, where we're talking about a whole bunch of people who were slave owners, right? And the oppressive piece of that, and at the beginning of our country as well. And, That's not anything to be glossed over either. And I think it's
Right.
a fact. And I think also when that's been brought up, the people have handled it and said like, yeah, that's true. Every single one of them was a slave owner. We can't ignore that. So, I think in short, I find it to be very well done. There's a lot of detail. The more you watch it, the more you see the care that's put into the details. I would love to see it on Broadway. I would love to see it live.
We'll get there.
It was supposed to be here.
Off Broadway, so yeah.
It was supposed to be in Boston, July of 2020, maybe.
I think so. It was the pandemic that stopped.
Yeah,
it, didn't
July or maybe it was July of this year. It might have been even July of 2021. And of course, we didn't get I feel like it was July of 2021 because July of 2020 was when Christian was born, and I wouldn't have been thinking we were going to go see something.
Right,
then.
that's true. That
So,
is true. Yeah.
I
So a
think-
couple of quick facts on the show. It was directed by Thomas Kail, written by Lin-Manuel Miranda, and inspired by Ron Chernow, inspired by the book Alexander Hamilton. It stars Lin-Manuel Miranda. It's a tough one for me. Obviously, he's the main character. He plays Alexander Hamilton. Philippa Sue, excuse me. She plays his wife Eliza. Leslie Odom Jr. plays Aaron Burr. Renee Elise Goldsberry. She plays Angelica Schuyler. Your favorite, Daveed Diggs, plays Lafayette, who is now apparently Sam's favorite as well.
Oh, yes.
Lafayette and Jefferson.
Right, and that's one of the great things in the show. There's a few people who play multiple characters, right? Jonathan Groff is one of my favorite. He plays King George. We'll get into that later. Chris Jackson plays George Washington. And Jasmine Cephas Jones, she plays Peggy. And that's a weird thing because we know that Peggy...
She also plays Mariah Reynolds.
Right, because Peggy, the person, dies, much younger than any of the other two sisters, and they don't really go into it. They just kind of skip over it. It's kind of like she's just there dancing. All of a sudden, the next act, she's not there anymore. They don't really and they stop when they say the sister's name again. They do a pause because where she would normally say her name, they stop and almost as if she's supposed to say her name, but because she's dead, they don't say it. So let's see. Anthony Ramos plays John Lawrence. Does he also? He's another one, right? He
also plays Philip Hamilton.
Yeah, he plays Hamilton. He's another one who does that. Okay, now help me out with this name. Who plays Hercules Mulligan?
I don't really know how to say
I don't even want to try, but I
know.
want to try, but I don't want to butcher this man's name because I'm sure it's a beautifully pronounced name that is just going to fumble over my stupid tongue.
Yeah, it's a traditional African name.
Yeah, and I'm just going to not do it any justice whatsoever. So it's almost like don't bother.
I
don't want to insult the man.
No, he plays Hercules Mulligan and Madison.
And Madison, that's right. So he's another one who plays two characters. Obviously, there's a lot more, but those are your main cast there. So an incredibly done. You almost don't notice it to some degree. Like, oh, this person's playing a different character.
I think you do.
Daveed Diggs, you definitely do because he's one of the main characters.
Yeah, but I think you do.
Awesome.
I think you can see parts of them coming through. Yeah. I think Daveed Diggs plays both. Like he gives a similar flair to Lafayette and Jefferson. For Madison and Hercules Mulligan, it's a much different. It's a much different character.
Contrast.
Yeah,
I didn't even know. I've watched it many times. I didn't realize.
But Anthony Ramos too. I think his John Lawrence is such a good friend of Hamilton's, and then he's playing his son.
Right.
It's a similar role, not totally, but I mean, he's very talented too.
You forgot one of the major characters in a musical is also its movement. So Andy Blankenbuehler's movement is just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible.
A whole character.
The choreography is incredible. The soundtrack is, I love soundtracks to movies and things like that. I have a lot, in my Apple library, there's a lot of soundtracks. I've listened to this one, I can't tell you how many times. It's probably one of my most listened to albums I have.
There's another character that we haven't talked about, which they call the bullet or the shot. And if you watch, there's a woman who plays it. I don't know who it is, but if you watch, there are several times where a shot will come and it will miss Hamilton.
Right.
And it's this idea that that he's missed his shot. The shot has missed him several times.
Right.
But at the end, of course, it doesn't.
Right.
But so he hasn't thrown away a shot until right at the end, but we can get there.
And that's obviously one of the major reoccurring themes throughout the show is him not wanting to throw away his shot.
When I read that and then I watched it again purposely to watch for it, it's so artfully done. If someone hadn't pointed it out to me, I don't think I would have noticed it.
Right.
But there are a lot of things that as you rewatch it and you see how really brilliantly it was done.
Yes, that's the beauty of rewatching is you can see things that you missed because it is very layered. It's very textured. there's a lot of stuff going on throughout the entire show. You know, that it's just between the music you're trying to listen to, and you know, you get Daveed Diggs on board, and he speaks so fast and so wonderfully. Like his rhythm is just incredible. His cadence is amazing.
So because his rhythm is so incredible, in Guns and Ships, those 2 raps are in there.
Right.
Because one of them, I forget which one, was originally written, and because his rhythm is just so incredible, they added the second one.
Right.
So it's just, it is incredibly fast.
So you try to like sing along with the music, right? And you get to that point. It's that part where you just kind of like, okay, I'll wait till he finishes because I'm not going to keep up with this man while he's going on.
And it's the words that he's saying too.
Yeah.
Like, matches my tactical brilliance.
Yeah.
And he raps it clearly, and you hear
Very
it
clearly.
and you understand it.
But some people struggle with that.
That are like,
Some people do struggle with that. I know some people have a hard time with that. They don't. I've read a lot of like comments, things like that, and that's for some reason they have a hard time. I can't understand what they're saying. It's like, well, you just need to listen faster because the man's brilliant and he's very clearly saying the words.
yeah.
There are other shows that I have trouble with. Not this show. I thought I would, but you hear what he's saying the whole time, and it's amazing.
Also, we have the internet now, so you can look it up.
You can look it up, sure.
Also,
you don't want to do that while you're trying to watch
the
the show.
You could slow it down.
You can, but you don't want to do that while you're watching
No.
the show. I get it, right? We talked
Or
about.
you could put on closed captioning.
You could, but I hate closed caption. If I don't have to watch closed caption, I don't want to watch it. I want to listen to the show.
Yeah.
I want to enjoy it. But like I said, I enjoyed it because I understood exactly what he was saying.
Me too.
While he was saying it. I'm
too.
just saying there's definitely a population out there who just didn't get it when they heard it, and I think it turns them off for the show, which is sad.
The thing that, so when I watch something, and it might just because I'm coming from a dancer background, but I'm not really listening to the words. I'm looking at pictures. I'm looking at moving pictures, and I'm digesting pictures, and I'm digesting the pictures of the choreography first, and then the story comes second. So it's almost like I need to rewatch it a couple of times in order to get the full breadth of the story and what's going on, because I'm going to be looking at the pictures first.
Gotcha.
And the costuming first, and how it ties together with the stage first. And I want to spend at least 2 minutes on the stage as well.
The music. Let's talk about the music first.
Yeah.
Let's go with the music first because that's still one of my favorite parts. Again, the soundtrack's incredible, and I can, if we want to, I can actually play some of the soundtrack through here, and you can hear it.
So I got into this, right? Like I hadn't, it was a craze. I'd had a ton of clients to listen to it, and I thought, I should listen to it. I think I would really like it because I like history. I love musicals. Like this is right up my alley. But I went to see Pops on the Heights, which I went to BC. So we had this Pops on the Heights, and Leslie Odom Jr. was the guest. And his voice was just beautiful. And so on the way home, I was like, I'm going to play the Hamilton soundtrack. And I just loved it. Loved it from the get-go. I listened to it over and over and over again on repeat. So I feel like I learned about the show just from the music. Seeing it acted, and I loved just hearing the soundtrack. I just played it on repeat in the car. But seeing it acted was a whole other layer, but the music really tells the story very beautifully. Yeah. There were very few things that surprised me when I saw it. Like, I feel like I knew the whole story. Right. Sometimes when you hear the music from a musical, you're missing major pieces, but I didn't feel that way. Right. I feel like I knew the story. There were a few things that I didn't. It's very dense.
Yeah. Like every song is so dense in terms of its lyrics and things like that. Because they're speaking so fast, they can throw so much in there. You almost don't need to see it, right? They're really describing very well what's going on in the songs.
And it's dense subject matter. Yeah. And I will continue to be amazed by how it rhymes.
Yeah.
It never, like,
That's incredible. Yeah, they did it. Manuel Miranda did an amazing job, and he's so talented. And he's done so many different things, right? He is he's the youngest person to win, I think it's 3 or 4 different awards in terms of.
And you have to listen to the music too. Like, it never feels stagnant. Sometimes when you have those big, long ballads in a musical, the movement feels static, the story feels static, or they feel stuck in one moment. This, you even just listening to it, you're constantly going somewhere. Like, there's always a trajectory. You're always going somewhere.
Yes. Agreed. I believe, yeah, absolutely. I think so, too. So what was your, well, we can start with our favorites if we want to. Like, what's your favorite part of the show? What is your favorite song? We know who your favorite character is. We get that. I haven't said mine yet, but actually I did. King George. I did say King George, played by
Jonathan Groff.
Jonathan Groff is still, I don't know why.
He gives such good crazy eyes, though.
He
It's hard not to love
his
him.
3 solos. I will listen to just those on repeat sometimes. I'll listen to the whole album, but I'll just listen to his solos 3 times. Like, it's just amazing. And the first one is incredible. I've watched some YouTube videos from stage actor coaches and things like that who talk about his genius in that performance alone. How he stares at the audience when he's doing it. He'll stare at one person. He doesn't kind of, you usually survey the audience, you kind of incorporating everybody. He'll stare at one person and kind of, go deep in with that one person during his little rant. He starts to get a little crazy in his rant. And then the spit that was, that came out, and there was just sort of like an impromptu, because he does actually spit a lot. Like, he's very known for, he uses a lot of saliva in his speech, in his song. So I thought that was hysterical. It just made it, even though that's normally him, it just added to the character, because he's starting to go crazy and he's getting, a little bit more loony, that where the U.S. space is pulling away.
Well, and just the way that he swaggers up and walks through.
The walk.
Just the walk. Oh, it reminded me of Scar in The Lion King,
Yes.
just slinking up.
Yeah.
And I
he's
was
trying
just
to
like,
balance that heavy crown on his head.
and he's trying to
it's part
balance
of
the
it.
heavy crown. And you see them take costume pieces away as he goes through his 3 songs. Like, he
Yes.
has that royal cape.
He's less and less
and then he's
of
less
a king.
and less and less of a king.
Right,
as
because
they
he's
move
less
through.
and less of an issue for them.
Well, exactly.
But he's also crazier and crazier. I mean, remember, like, he had syphilis actively, and it was eating away at his brain, and so he was nuts.
Yeah. It was
mean,
real.
so,
It wasn't he wasn't just mad because the colonists were pulling away.
Well, he wasn't-
a little medically sick.
More than a little medical.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot, right? There's the whole thing about inbreeding. But anyways.
Yeah.
So my favorite song, my favorite part,
I know what it is, but I want you to tell me.
Yeah, come on.
The Battle of Yorktown is
Yes.
my absolute favorite song. Guns and Ships is a close second, and also The Room Where It Happened. But the Battle of Yorktown is just, there is something so joyful about it at the end. Like, you can feel, you
That's the one where the world turns upside down.
the world
right?
turns upside down.
Want to hear a little bit of it?
Sure,
Do a
yeah.
little preview.
Oh, you can play through my favorite.
The Battle of Yorktown, 1781.
Monsieur Hamilton,
Monsieur Lafayette,
in command where you belong.
are you saying no sweat? We're finally on the field, we've had quite a run.
Immigrants, we get the job done.
So what happens if we win?
I go back to France, I bring freedom to my people if I'm given the chance.
We'll be with you when you do.
Go, lead your man.
I'll see you on the other side.
Till we meet again.
I am not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot. Hey yo, I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, and I'm not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot. Till the world turns upside down. Till the world turns upside down. I imagine death so much. it
I
feels
mean,
more like a
unbelievable, right? Like, just incredible. The lyrics, it gets you sucked into it. It's amazing. That Not Gonna Throw Away My Shot. It's like that permeates through a lot of different songs.
That
not
and
just that one.
the thing that he starts to go into there, I imagine death so much it feels more like a memory. That's a refrain of his multiple times throughout the show too.
Yes.
That it just at these moments, and at the end when he's dying, obviously there's this big monologue.
I mean,
that's part of
this
it,
is one of
but-
those shows where, like, it's history, so you know what's
go
going to
in
happen.
knowing the ending.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. You know he's going to die. Yeah, you know what I mean? You know
Like
that's going to
that's
happen
what
because it's part of
happens.
history. It's not a mystery.
But it's also, I mean, I love the beat. I love everything to it. I love that exchange with him and Lafayette in the beginning. I think it's hysterical.
That's my favorite line.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think it's really, I just think it's well done. And from the first time I heard it, I was like, oh, I love this. It just made me want to get up and move. And at the end, like, they're so jubilant because they won. And they really did turn the world upside down. I mean, when you think about it, like, who did this? I mean, there's a part where Burr says, who thought a ragtag volunteer army, in need of a shower would defeat a global superpower?
Right.
I mean, and there you are, right? Like, who puts the word superpower in a musical?
Right.
And the next line is like, they emerge victorious from the quagmire, from the battlefield, waving Betsy Ross's flag higher. What? That's
Yep.
That's part of Guns and Ships, at the
Yep.
very beginning of Guns and Ships. But it's just these words that they had to rhyme. I mean, not that other musicals aren't great, but it's a little bit easier when you're rhyming Marion the Librarian than some of these things, right?
Right.
It's a little different.
Agreed.
So
Agreed.
that always impresses me, like what they did with what they had.
Yep.
I will say my favorite character is the movement. It's always going to be the movement. I do like that there are no traditional like line or dance breaks or big theatrical numbers. The amusement is punchy, it's idiosyncratic, and it's relentless.
Yes.
They keep coming at you. I also like that the stage moves in a circle.
Yeah, the circular portion of the
The
stage.
circular portion
yeah,
of the stage, and then they have one disc going one way and one disc going another.
Yes, there's an outer ring in the inner circle. Yeah.
An outer ring in the inner circle, and I mean, we could spend a ton of time pulling that apart, but just the fact that shows movement.
The symbolism of an outer ring and inner circle.
Yeah.
So, but do you know why they did that? It's very simple. It's because Miranda writes too fast.
Yeah.
He has his scene transitions are too fast.
And it's too fast to have traditional scene changes.
He's like, I write for movies, not for apparently. So when they try to stage my productions, this was the only way they could do it with minimal set and.
Well,
Yeah, but it works for this.
It works
the whole
for
thing
it.
takes place in one set. The whole construction with the stairs and the whole, the upper sort of loft area. You see that the whole time, even when they're supposed to be in Yorktown fight. You know what I mean? You see all these different parts. It's amazing how well they can transition without moving the major portion of the set. Just putting in a table and some chairs, and all of a sudden you're in the Oval Office, or you're in with Washington in their office.
That's
in
when
New
you
York at the time.
That's when you have a really good lighting designer, and the stage it's lit really, really well.
It's lit differently, and just like you said, minimal sets. You just put a street lamp, a table, or something, and you're in a completely different area. Unlike when I saw, I think it was it Les Mis? I think I saw. No, it wasn't Les Mis. It was one of the other ones I saw, and the whole stage lifts up because I went to New York one time to see a play, and if I remember which I want to say it was Les Mis. Anyway, they transition up a flight of stairs, like a spiral stairs, and while the actress is transitioning, the entire stage lifts. So you're seeing, or lowers. It keeps lifting up and down, and you see a completely different room. It's amazing, right? Without having to move things in and out, they just lift the entire. That's incredible. This does the same effect without moving anything.
Well, and they're also getting in. Not only is it moving quickly and it keeps going, but it's also, I think, it's a really good symbol of the passage of time. Because if you see where they set up chairs, it's almost like the numbers on a clock. Mm-hmm. You get the top portion of the clock, and then we as the audience are the bottom portion, which kept getting stuck in my head.
Right.
But then again, I dissect these things for
fun.
No,
but we all do that, right? We all sort of find our own symbolisms in things and dissect it in our own kind of way. You're dissecting the dance movements. I wouldn't know the first thing of how to dissect that whatsoever. I deal more with the acting portion of it, right? Watching John McGruff and his craziness and the spit and things like that. You love the music portion of it, which I love, but I think you definitely are way more musical than I am, right?
Well, in that I appreciate it, not that I can sing. But
No, yeah, exactly. Not that you approve. I appreciate it. I just don't know it. I don't have you know what I mean? Like, I don't have a deep knowledge of it, and I certainly can't remember songs. And
do you have a favorite song?
I don't have a favorite song. I have a favorite movement transition because I'm a dance nerd.
Okay, talk about it because I can't play it on the thing.
No, so it's when they're doing my shot, but it's just the fact that they're using the same shapes. And so they're taking a very simple dance concept of using the same shapes, except it's not like you think you're picking up on a pattern of movement and they start down in plie and they're sort of low like this, and then they come up and they move forward and they go back. And it's just the fact that they're also moving so in time. Mm-hmm. They use the same choreography and the same steps over and over and over again without a lot of fancy jumps, kicks, leaps, turns, which I think is really, really smart. Just because of the amount of athleticism that you need for this.
Right.
It's not really normal. It's not normal to a musical. Normally they have a saying, and the producers, it's like turn, kick, turn, turn, kick, turn, turn, kick, turn. That's normal. That's typically what you see in a musical is
right.
You see a bunch of stunts one after another. This, they're creating shapes and it adds to it. It doesn't,
right.
It doesn't subtract. It
right.
doesn't
Help
take
to tell
away.
the story. Not trying to take it over. Yeah, I think that's right. I like that. I see. That's why we needed Sam here, right? We're talking about things. Okay, so do you have a favorite character other than a favorite person so far? You haven't seen the whole thing yet. I'm going to put it right out there in front of you. We told you to watch it last night. You didn't. We're sort of watching.
I fell asleep.
The one who works at Starbucks.
Oh, really?
There just fell asleep. Get some coffee.
So I like Lafayette. I'm not sold on Jefferson. I like the King. I love to hate Burr. That's where I'm at.
You're supposed to love to hate.
You're supposed to. You haven't come to the, like, you'll see at the end, there's some redemption for him. I mean,
little spoilers for Sam.
Smarmy little git. I don't know.
He does. You can see the guilt at the end. Like, he does.
He does, but right from the beginning, he's like, "I'm the damn fool who shot him."
Mm-hmm.
Like he even he puts it right on Front Street in the opening song when they're all kind of describing to you who they are and who you're going to see throughout this play. He's the one who says, "I'm the damn fool who shot him." Not just I'm the one who shot him. He's admitting he was wrong for doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you also don't normally see that in a musical either. You don't see that kind of Shakespearean introduction of characters.
Right.
No, it's
either.
really
that's a very like Shakespeare thing to do. Introduce them, tell you what happened, and now we're going to tell it to you.
Yeah. Basically giving away the ending, and then we're going to show you what happened, how it happened.
Well, you already know the ending anyways.
You do know the ending. But if you watch in the beginning, they say, like, if you look, like, the David Diggs and, so Jefferson and Lafayette and then Madison and Hercules Mulligan, they say, we fought with him. They did. So as Mulligan and Lafayette, they fought with him. As Jefferson and Madison, they did fight with him. In a different way. They were combative. They weren't, and then you say,
him.
then you've got Philip, I keep wanting to say Philip Schuyler, but it's not, Philip Hamilton and John Lawrence saying, I died for him, right?
Yep.
I died for him. And they both did.
They both did, that's right.
They both did. Yeah. And, and then you've got the three women saying, I loved him. Yeah, they all did. And then Burr says, I'm the damn fool who shot him. So it's all of this foreshadowing, and it's also these roles that, play off of each other, right? That they had these similar roles in his life. And I think that's not by coincidence.
Right.
Certainly.
Yeah. No, I agree. So, all right. So continue. So delve a little bit deeper into the story because, like we said, there's a lot that they leave out, but they put in, a lot into it, right? There's a lot of story into it.
And there are parts that they embellish.
Sure.
Like,
we talked about this. The definitely embellishments and retelling in a different, different people doing the acts that supposed to be done by other people.
But if you think of like this relationship that, supposedly he's having an emotional affair with Angelica, with his sister-in-law, that's very, Hamilton kind of went rogue with that. Like there's a letter where he writes, my dearest, comma, Angelica. Yeah. Right. And they reference that in the show, but also like that's the only thing it came from.
Right.
and Miranda will say that, like, I took it from there. That's what I just kind of ran with it. And I'm sure there's theories, not just his.
Right.
But that these things that, so that's something that's, not necessarily, certainly the affair with Mariah Reynolds was absolutely true. And he was rumored to be like kind of a dog. Yeah. Like always kind of running around on her. But, I think men did that then, which doesn't make it acceptable, doesn't make it okay.
Right. We were talking about that before we started recording with Sam. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff like the prism. You look at these things and is a prism of their time, what these people did. And these men did amazing things for this country. And obviously our country wouldn't be where it is without them. Well, but none of them are perfect. And they did horrific things that by our standards today would not be acceptable. You know what I mean?
However, as much as he ran around on her with, right? This was before the internet, before newspapers, before even the gossip column, right?
Yep.
Then he writes a pamphlet.
He outs himself.
He writes a whole
wrecks his own career by outing himself
on it because he's afraid he's going to be exposed and his legacy.
Mm-hmm. He was so concerned with that legacy.
That his legacy will be tarnished.
Yeah.
And just
he destroys himself.
He destroys himself and his family.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's I can't even imagine what that must have been like for her or for his children to live through. Right. I mean, what were you thinking?
He was concerned with his legacy, and it's kind of like that. I'll go to the press first before the press comes to me and spins the story out of control. I'll control the story by just writing it and telling my side first.
People do really strange things when motivated from fear.
Yes, and that's exactly what he was motivated by, right? Fear of his legacy and ruining everything and losing everything, and it turns out he just caused it himself. But yeah, he wanted to control the story versus the press controlling the story.
Well, and I mean, I found myself throughout the entire time, because he keeps repeating, I'm the bastard son of an immigrant, and I found myself in my head going, okay, we get it, shut up. We get it. You don't have to keep being that, but then I had to actually take a step back and put myself in his shoes and say, no, actually, probably for his entire life, it's, you're the bastard son of an immigrant. Yes. Be happy you're at the table.
Yeah, because that plays in a little deeper later on, which I think is probably later than where you're at in it, where they're like, who the hell is this guy? Like, how is this bastard son of an immigrant. Why are we fighting with him? Like, why is he so powerful? Where the hell did he come from? You know, we were here. We have, you know, money and power, and he's basically poor until he marries Peggy. You know what I mean?
He doesn't
He doesn't
marry
marry
Peggy.
Peggy, excuse me. Sorry.
Marries Eliza.
Marries Eliza,
Peggy
excuse me.
dies and no one talks about it.
Right, no, Peggy. That's why, because that's why it's stuck in my brain. Because she's the one that dies, and they don't talk about it. So he marries Eliza, and then he has money, but he's still the uneducated, essentially. You know what I mean? He gets educated. He comes to this country and does it.
There's
But
also
he's ridiculously
probably-
smart. He's ridiculously
There's also probably
accomplished.
the fact that it chafes that he only has money because it's his wife's money. It's his wife's
yeah,
father's money.
it's bought in money, essentially. It's married to money.
It's not his.
He didn't.
Yeah.
It's not inherited money. It's not, you know, money he made himself. Yeah, it's money he married into.
And I think it's not only the way he saw him, it's the way other people saw him, right? Like Adams in particular was brutal with him. I mean, Adams, you know, I've read that other places too. Adams hated him, John Adams. And so, I mean, he doesn't have a place in that government. But because, you know, and Adams didn't like him for a whole bunch of reasons. And, you know, I mean, Hamilton was kind of caustic, right? I mean, I think most people would say that about him too. So, you know, there is that piece. He wasn't always like, you know, trying to be super friendly with people. You know,
He did. He seemed kind of like just no nonsense, a little bit brutal. Like, I just want to get this. I need to get this bill passed, and I'll step on you to do it. Like, I'm just going to get this has to be done. I know this has to be done. I'm smarter than everybody else in this room, so I have to get this done. You need to shut up and do what I tell you to do because I'm smarter than you. Which doesn't always rub people the right way when you're supposed to be all dealing with it together. Like, that's the whole purpose, right? You're not a king. You're not a dictator. We're supposed to be doing this together, and you're just basically telling us what we need to do.
he wasn't very good at being political, right?
He
He had
was
to
not.
learn. He had to learn how to do that, you know.
Well, and they do touch on that from the very start of the action. It's talk less, smile more.
Yeah, that's Burr, right?
That's
Yep.
Burr.
That's Burr through and through.
To a degree, though, right? Like, you know, Burr was definitely the opposite way. Like, he was 180 degrees the opposite way, and it didn't really serve him all that well either because he never really got to where he wanted to be, right? He was never in the room where it happened because he was just too much like, I'm just going to tell you what I believe in.
Notice throughout all of the action, unless like if a decision is being made, everybody is inside the circle, and Burr only makes it to the outer portion.
That's
of
right.
The
He's
moving
generally,
circle.
yeah, that's right. So he's never in where he wants desperately to be inside the circle. He wants to be in the
He
circle.
never- he's
but he
never
doesn't
in the
because
room
he
where it happens.
smiles too much and doesn't talk enough. He never really puts his foot down and says, this is what I believe in. This is what we should do. He's just kind of, he's too, you know, playing the field with everybody and too,
Well, and
you
he
know,
also never picks a color. He doesn't transition even when he's on there. Even when he's supposedly on their side, he's still always in purple. He's not in colonial blue.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, okay, so let's talk about that because that leads in perfectly to the costuming, which is incredible, amazing, the foreshadowing, the different colors, right? You know, they're wearing the blue, they're wearing the brown, they're wearing the white when they're dead. You know what I mean? That, you know,
Or at
after
the
they've died.
beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, they've all got white on at the beginning.
Yeah.
Well, that's also to differentiate between main characters and like dancers, right?
Right. With that, but I think like if you look at the main characters, they all come on, they're in white. Right? Except for the ladies. The ladies are in the colors that they wear, and they wear those throughout. But if you look at like Eliza's dress, she's wearing the same color, but it changes.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's much more youthful in the beginning, then her dress is older.
It transitions.
It transitions.
Washington.
Washington, you know, changes.
She also
into-
gains accessories as she becomes married to him and then a mother, if
Yeah.
you notice on her dress.
And you know, Washington is I mean, I think my favorite costuming moment is in the end when Washington and Hamilton are not in the end, but in the one of their last scenes together where they're singing one last time.
Yep.
They're both in black, white and black.
Right.
And you know they both die before the end of the play. And it's symbolizing that. Washington just because he was old.
Right.
And, you know, I mean, part of the reason he decided not to run for another term was, I mean, if he had, he would have died in the middle of it. So that would have been a whole mess. So there's this like, you know, was he sick? Did he know? Blah, 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 historically. But Hamilton also.
How
and, you
old
know,
was he when he left office? I mean, he was up there, right?
You know, he was in his 60s.
If
I mean,
only we
Right,
had a
60s,
way
right.
to
60s, which
look-
then-
If only we
to
had
look
some
this
sort of
up.
interwebs that we can look this up.
that we could
But
look this up,
back
he
then,
was,
60 was
exactly.
old.
I mean, he says, you know, I've spent my life in service to the last 40 years in service to this country.
Right.
And, you know, to my country. And he did. He was a public servant for a very long time.
Yeah.
And that, you know, not just
All
as
right,
president.
so according to the Great Wikipedia, he was in office from April 30th, 1789 to March 4th, 1797.
2 terms. And how old was he? And he died in 1791. No.
1799.
1799.
Ooh, so
that's right.
yeah, a couple of.
So 2 years. So if he had run for a third term,
He would have been.
He would have
right
been
in the
dead.
middle of it and dead, and that would have left the country in a horrible place.
exactly.
Well, but they also
Because
talk about
he was the the benchmark. He was the pillar. And
they
if
also
that gets
talk-
taken out in the middle, not a good idea.
they also talk about in Hamilton. They also talk about I have to set this example. If
Yeah.
I don't leave now,
The
when
nation-
will I leave?
Yeah,
Because then it becomes a-
nation
it
outlives
becomes-
me
yeah.
after I'm gone.
Right,
He
because
says it.
otherwise it's another king, it's a monarch. If
Exactly.
you don't, who just stays in power indefinitely, you have to let it go to the next person to teach the people how
Mm-hmm.
to make it go to the next person.
And peaceful transition of power is a big deal.
Right.
Right. It isn't something that's. I mean, when they were doing this, it was completely revolutionary.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't something that had been done on a regular basis.
Right.
So when they were
It's
doing
not what
it,
the
it
people
was
knew.
like.
Right, the people knew the king, and that
Yeah.
you stay the king until you die,
Yeah,
basically.
exactly.
You know what I mean? So
And that would have been, but that's, so, I mean, that's peace. But with the costuming there, you watch them. Or Hamilton, Hamilton wears green
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the first act because he's going to be the Secretary of the Treasury.
Right.
So he's green. And Jefferson is very, his suit is purple, but it's not just purple. It's like magenta. It's
Yeah.
very out there. And Madison, if you look, he's gray. Like
Right.
He's got a little bit of yellow in there, but he's gray. And Madison is more of this, it fits the character, right?
Right.
If it's the characters
Madison
they're portraying
is much
it.
more reserved. I mean, it's even in the character portrayal because Hercules is completely and totally different. He even mugs to the camera as he's doing certain things and sticks his tongue out, which we always love a good face moment to the audience, or at least I do when someone's doing something. I think it's great. But Madison's a complete 180.
Yeah. And it is, Madison is just much more, he was much more of a conservative, straight-laced, kind of your typical Southern slave-holding guy,
right.
In Congress who wanted to see things, needed a mouthpiece, and there came Jefferson.
Right. That transition when we bring in Jefferson was fantastic. That's one of my favorite songs. When he comes in, he gets introduced. You want to play a little bit of it?
Yeah.
All right. What's the name of that one there?
What did I miss?
There it is. What did I miss? Let's see. Let me turn this up.
It's the beginning of Act 2.
Beginning of Act 2. What did I miss? Let's get that one going because that is still one of my favorites. I'm gonna pull it up here. There we are.
Seventeen.
1789. How does the bastard, orphan, immigrant, decorated war vet unite the colonies through more debt? Fight the other founding fathers till he has to forfeit. Have it all, lose it all. You ready for more yet? Treasury Secretary, Washington's the president. Every American experiment sets a precedent. Not so fast, someone came along to resist him. Pissed him off until we had a two-party system. You haven't met him yet, you haven't had the chance. Cause he's been kicking ass as the ambassador to France. But someone's gotta keep the American promise. You simply must meet Thomas.
Thomas Jefferson's coming home.
Thomas Jefferson's coming home.
Thomas Jefferson's coming home.
Thomas Jefferson's coming home.
Thomas Jefferson's coming home. Lord, he's been off in Paris for so long.
France is following us to revolution. There is no more status quo. But the sun comes up and the world still spins. I helped Lafayette draft a declaration. Then I said I gotta go. I gotta be in Monticello. Now the work at home begins. So what did I miss? What did I miss? Virginia, my home, sweet home. I want to give you a kiss.
I love that song. I love that song. I listen to that over and over again. So I like the Monticello line too because that comes up later.
Yep.
When he's having the debate with Hamilton, you probably know. You probably repeat it better than I can. When he's having that, the cabinet debate with him, and he's basically like, you're just like hanging loose in Monticello, where we're basically doing the work here, and you've just been screwing around. Like the little conversations that are happening. So yeah, that's one of my favorite. That battle speech that they have together, definitely one of my favorite.
Cabinet Battle 2.
That's right, Cabinet Battle 2.
To.
Yes, that's number 2. I love that they're basically trying to put each other in their place, but Hamilton definitely does it way better.
Staying mellow, doing whatever the hell it is you do in Monticello.
Yep. I love it. He's like, you just bend over, I'll show you where my shoe fits.
Yeah.
And they start losing. Washington has to step in and stop them. Like, all
that's
right,
the first one.
Let's take a break.
That's the first.
Is that the
That's
first one? See, I told you. See, she knows it way better than I do. I've seen it a whole bunch of times, but she's got the music part down, so
That's
she'll
the first
be
one.
able to talk about it easy in that.
I mean, it's just a lot of those pieces. Like, and then there's a point where Jefferson dances in that.
Yep.
And Hamilton mocks it later.
Yep.
Like when he's, I mean, it's really, it's great. It's well done. Like when they're doing the cabinet battle, you can just see it like repeating and following through. And there are certain things like in that song, when Madison comes up to him and says, "Where have you been?" and to be, Jefferson says, "France."
France? Wasn't that?
He ad-libbed that.
That was ad-libbed.
It was
That's
just
right.
like
That
he
was
was
ad-libbed.
in a rehearsal. He just ad-libbed it, and the
So they
director
left it, they kept
loved
it.
it,
Yeah.
and the director just thought it was hysterical.
Yeah.
Because he was like, "What do you mean?" He just thought it was hysterical, and they kept
France.
it, and it just, it just
So then
works.
the question becomes like, obviously, those people, David Diggs and Lin-Manuel, they're not doing the show anymore. Some other people are
Yep.
fulfilling the roles and doing it on Broadway, off whatever they're doing. Does the whoever's doing Jefferson now, does he have that same like? So we go to see it. We want to go see
Yeah.
it, but we've seen the show on Disney Plus. It's not going to be the same actors. How is that going to work for you?
Well,
Like
I
for
think
me,
you
it's
have
kind of
an-
like I love the show, but I love the actors that played it.
I think you have an essence of the character, right?
Yeah.
So I think like I've seen Hello Dolly
Yeah.
with multiple people as Dolly, right? I've seen it with Carol Channing, I've seen it with Barbara Streisand, and I've seen, tapes
that's
with
Carol
Bette
Channing
Midler.
and Barbara Streisand.
Yeah, and Bette Midler. But the point is they bring different pieces to it. There are things that
Midler's also not too shabby herself.
Well, that's
Come
my
on
point. That's
now.
like the one
But
bit of
there are-
wonderful or another.
Yeah. But there are pieces that like Carol Channing did that then Streisand doesn't copy, and
Yeah.
parts that she does. And then, like, I'm thinking particularly of the Hello Dolly song, and then, Midler puts her own spin on it
Right.
in different pieces. So it's the same words, but there are like pieces going through it that
Yes.
everybody kind of does their own spin on.
Right.
So you see, but I
'Cause
think
that's
the
my
essence
fear.
of the character.
But that's my fear. I go and watch it. And like I said, I love King
Yeah.
George. And I love the way he played it. I've seen, you can find some clips and
Yeah.
stuff like that of what one of the
Yeah.
not necessarily the current cast, but a different
Yeah.
cast, and it's not the same.
No, but I think the essence of the character remains the
Sure.
same. But it's
That's
not.
the beauty of theater, though. That's
Yeah.
the beauty of artistry. Like, you gotta give the person playing the character the room to do it their way.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Like-
But I'll counter that with the fact, but I liked it the way he did it, and I
So
want to
what?
see the way he did it, but I'm not going to get to see the way he did because I liked his version.
Well, you can see it. You just have to watch. You can't see it live.
Right. Exactly. That's the only struggle.
Just have to
going
watch
see it live.
Disney Plus.
And that's fine. I can watch it. It's not ruining my childhood to watch
Yeah.
it a different person doing it. I can always just go back on Disney Plus and watch the one I love.
Yeah.
Easy enough.
And it is. I mean, I think the same thing. I mean, I know all the words. I know everything. I sing along every time.
Yes.
I can't help it. But seeing a different portrayal or just hearing different voices.
Hearing
Okay,
different
so-
voices will have different inflections
Yeah,
and different.
and
you
you-
know
So
what
I
mean?
get where you're coming from, Marco, because if I see, if I were going to go see Annie and it's not Carol Burnett as Miss Hannigan.
Right, or Aileen
it's-
Quinn as Annie. It's different.
not going to
It's-
be the same for me. It would be weird if Eileen Quinn was Annie now. It would be a little weird.
Yeah, she's super cool. I met her.
She's super cool,
awesome,
but she's
yeah.
a little old to be orphan.
A little bit.
A little bit old to be
Sweetie.
adopted.
She's a sweetheart, though. She said I
but-
give good hug. She said I give good hugs.
That is true.
She was my first crush growing up. She was my first childhood crush growing up. I'll fully admit that. And I finally got to meet her a number of years ago at a convention. She was there with her mom. Her mom's a firecracker, and her mom's kind of her road manager, if you will. And she said, "Oh, give you a hug," and I was like, "Okay." And she said, "I give a good hug."
You do, dear.
I do. That's what I've been told that a lot.
So, anyways, back to Hamilton.
Yes, back to Hamilton.
No, I was just gonna say that I understand where you're coming from with King George, because if I see any other Miss Hannigan portrayal, if it's not Carol Burnett, I'm just like, it's not as good.
But I think for the standout roles for me, the three for me are King George, David Diggs, and Lin-Manuel Miranda. To me, but the first two before Miranda, as much as because he's the main, so that would be tough to see. But those two, especially seeing different actors portray them, will be a little jarring for me. That's all. It's not going to ruin the play by any means. It's not going to ruin my enjoyment of going to watch this amazing
different.
show.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just going to
different.
be a little different.
It's just different. And I do, I do hope we get the opportunity to see it relatively soon. But it is.
Me too. But it's not going away anytime soon either. Like things are starting to come back. I've been watching some stuff. They're reopening in Broadway and things like that. So, this show has been such a phenomenon. It's not going away anytime soon. Look how long they ran Cats. It's not going away anytime soon. So we will get a chance to go see it. Whether, it comes to Boston or we do a trip somewhere.
That was one movie they shouldn't have made.
Yes. And in fact, I was just reading.
Not this podcast, please.
No, it's okay. I just read an article, and it could be completely false, but it seemed real that Weber was so distraught over that movie, he literally got like an emotional service dog. He literally, I'm not kidding. I just read that today. It was really. I didn't read the full article because I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. He did.
Amazing.
He was so distraught over that movie, how bad it was. Listen, he had to go get a service dog. And I'm not putting down people who do that. I think it's a real thing.
No.
I just
there
feel
were a
bad
lot
that
of people.
That movie caused him to go do that.
There were a lot of people who were distraught over that movie. I have not seen it, so I cannot offer an opinion.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of people, from what I heard, who found it really rough. I have a hard time with
I don't think I've ever seen the actual musical itself, so I wouldn't.
I've seen pieces.
Other than just being if it's a horrible movie, just because it's a horrible movie.
Well, no, I think it's
people dressed as weird cats.
It's I don't know the quite right way to say it, but people's faces on cats' bodies freak me out. That's part of the reason.
Anamorphized, something like that.
It was part of the reason I didn't watch Lion King when they remade it.
Anamorphized is what it's called.
So here's the thing.
Never get that word out straight.
Disney, if you're listening, please stop making the mouths move. In Homeward Bound, we understood when the animals were talking in their distinct voices.
You didn't need digital artists moving the mouths.
We did not need their mouths to move. Please stop.
I agree. All right.
Pretty please stop.
Back to Hamilton.
Back to Hamilton.
I know we tangent a lot, but that's okay.
We do. So, I think, and the part that we haven't covered, and I think was one of the most emotional parts for me. So, I had listened to this music for, I don't know, 8 or 9 months. In fact, 10 months before I got to see it.
Yeah, I would say.
So, because by the time it came out July 3rd, 2020.
Yep.
And I was due July 13th.
Yep.
Of 2020. So I was very, very pregnant.
Yes.
I was very, very pregnant and I'd been waiting for it too.
Yes.
Like I knew it was coming. I was really sad because I couldn't have my work friends over, loved it. I couldn't have them over to come and see it because it was the middle of the pandemic and I was really worried about getting sick. So I watched it and I must have, I'd seen it. I knew exactly what was going to happen and I sobbed. I sobbed several times.
Yes, you did.
But, and times predictably. But the worst, of course, for anyone who's seen it, was at the end when Philip dies.
Yeah, that's one of those things you still cringe and cry when it happens.
Well, yes. I mean, and I think it was different. It was definitely different. It was different being pregnant and seeing that, but it was different. In theory, I've always wanted children. I've always wanted to, but then once I was pregnant and we were having a son.
Yep.
I mean, that was just the end. I couldn't. I lost it, and I was pregnant. I was hormonal, but I cried and cried.
You said it, not us.
I cried like Eliza Hamilton, and when I was listening to it and watching that, I just couldn't. I couldn't even begin, and I couldn't even begin to be rational and separate myself from it. I do a better job now. But it's still very, very hard. Yes. And it was still, and at that time it was also very emotional. I'd never had a baby before. And I was about to give birth. And I was very, very scared about that and what was going to happen. And it was the middle of a pandemic and I had to give birth with a mask on and all of these things. It's something I'd never done before. And how well I do with that. I like to do things really well the first time. And
you do.
And so it was very, but when you listen to that, there's a heartbeat that goes through while he's still alive, like a beating drum that goes through. And then when he dies, it stops.
Right.
And that was the first time I had really connected it, watching it like that. Mm-hmm. And it just wrecks me. And now every time I hear that, I cry. Yeah. Driving. I sometimes, if I'm in traffic, I skip it.
Now that we have a child, things like that are super amplified.
But having seen it, I think I understood that that's what it was, but seeing those particular pieces together, I had never cried before, and I had been pregnant for a long time listening to it. But seeing it that way,
Yeah.
Oh my God. Now I can't even, if I'm driving in traffic and it comes on, I skip it because I know I'm going to cry.
Yeah, there's some you have to. Are there any other songs you skip per se? Maybe not for that reason, just not really
No, I mean, all of them I like. I mean, I have to be in the mood.
Yeah.
But it's very rare that I skip them. Sometimes I will skip if I've had a really bad day at work I'll skip Burn
Okay.
because it's just too. I mean, it's so beautiful and it's so emotional and it's so heavy. Sometimes I just can't. Or sometimes like Burr's songs, like I'm gonna wait for it. So I just feel like he's tortured.
Right.
And because he's so tortured, I can't. I just can't sometimes.
Yes.
But in general, anything that's happier, I don't. The other one too is what is the song after Philip Schuyler dies? After Philip Hamilton dies.
What song is that?
The Hamiltons move uptown and learn to live with the unimaginable.
It's not Hurricane.
No,
It's not the Reynolds pamphlet.
no, after that.
No, because it's Quiet Uptown.
Yeah, it's Quiet Uptown. Sometimes I can't listen to that.
Yeah, I have trouble with that one too. It's just not one of my favorite songs. It's very slow. It's it's still a good song. I think it's well written. I just it's not like a really great song to kick out in the car too. Like so much of the music is so upbeat and it's almost it's dance music essentially, and that is just not. One that gets me is Blow Us All Away. Mm-hmm. Right, because they talk about their kids and what their kids are gonna do. Now that I have a son, it even hits home even more. Like he's saying that we're gonna watch you and I'm gonna make this world wonderful for you, and you're gonna watch you grow up and take charge of the world we're creating for you. But then his son dies. You know what I mean? So that's really tough because that's actually not gonna happen. You know what I mean, for him anyway. Mm-hmm. So that's one I like the song. I'll sing it. You know what I mean? But it's still it's tough to listen to. It's one of those songs where I'll put my son's name in. You know what I mean? Just like, even though I'm singing it out loud in the car by myself, because I don't do this when other people are around, because I absolutely hate when people do that. If I'm listening to a song, don't sing over the song and change the words on me. Drives me crazy. I'll do it myself when other people aren't around.
I sing over the song all the time. I can't help it with these lyrics.
No, I don't have a problem with you singing over the song, like singing with the song. Mm-hmm. That is totally fine. I do that. We do that all the time. It's when you change the lyrics while you're singing. That drives me crazy. I don't know about you, that drives me crazy. Sing the song, sing the lyrics that are there. Sing them aloud. I don't care, because I'm going to probably be doing it too. Just don't change the lyrics. I do
all the time with this.
Yeah, and that's totally fine.
Particular.
I'll change the lyrics if I'm by myself. Mm-hmm. I don't do it when other people are around.
Yeah, there are, there were, when I was pregnant, there were, moments in the beginning, like when he gets sent home from the army and she's pregnant and she's telling him, I relish being your wife. I sobbed through that whole song right before I was going to have the baby. I mean, it was just, I cried, wept probably 5 times. And, being pregnant and super hormonal and emotional, I don't think I would have cried that much, but I definitely would have cried and still do cry when I see it.
Yeah. So how far did you get, Sam? I know you didn't get to watch the whole thing yet. What part did you end on?
I think I'm halfway through and they're sort of trying to figure out the compromise for...
Have you hit the intermission yet?
Yeah, I'm past the intermission.
Past that.
I'm like 50 minutes past that.
Oh,
you
okay.
saw the room where it happened.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Excellent. All right. What else do we want to talk about? It's amazing. There's so much to talk about. We've done a lot. We're up to 53 minutes already, but what else do you want to say about the show? The things that you don't like about the show? Is anything? I know, Sam, you were having trouble with the stuff that gets left out.
Yeah, I mean, I just like...
But we'll preface it with the fact that it's a musical. It's only, 2 hours? How long is it?
2.5 hours.
2.5 hours over this man's entire life. You know what I mean? There's only so much you can put in. Plus, he's not the only character they talk about. So
this is true. It's just like all of a sudden you see Peggy, then never again.
Right.
And then all of a sudden...
Her death apparently is not poignant enough in the whole telling of his story to warrant another song, because that's what's going to have to be, right?
Yeah. Or
parts of a song to figure out why she's dead. She's just gone. And what they do, we talked about this, what they do is when the sisters are saying their names, when she's supposed to say her name, because they did it earlier, they're reprising it, there's a pause. There's a dramatic pause, right? Eliza, you know what I mean? They say, and then boom, where Peggy's supposed to say her name, they pause.
Well, and I think it's one of those things that like, and I said this too from the very beginning, is when I watch something, I don't know if I said it on air, but I said it with you guys before filming, I watch something in the way that I take in things. I'm going to look at the dancing and the costuming and the set first, and then I'm going to focus on the story and the music, and then I'm going to focus on the story. So like, it's almost like the story doesn't matter as much to me as what I'm looking at visually, as
Right.
the movement that I'm looking at.
But the story bugged you on this one. There's some parts of the story
There's
that were
some
left
parts
out
of it that I'm
did
just
get
like,
to you.
come on. At least explain it.
And they do a little bit, right? Like the slavery portion of it that is obviously very much left out, which is something they take a lot of flack for. But he did it on purpose, right? They touch on it, but we know all these guys were, essentially, they were, including Hamilton.
Yeah. I
owned
mean,
slaves.
so Hamilton, I don't know that Hamilton did, but his father-in-law certainly did.
Right.
And I think like there was, I haven't delved deeply into this, but I mean, there's a point during the first cabinet battle where he says to Jefferson, like, a civics lesson from a slaver. Hey, neighbor, your debts aren't paid because you don't pay for labor. And it's like, well, yeah, but, here's the, who are you to throw stones because you also own slaves.
Right.
And everyone else there did too. And
Yeah.
don't pretend that you were an abolitionist because you really want. John Lawrence, from what I understand in my reading of the history, is not very deep. Truly, that was his dream to abolish slavery and to have this black regiment. Whether Hamilton shared those ideas or not, it's really vague.
Right.
Or did he kind of fall where the wind blew with that? There's some stuff that says in the beginning of his life, he was definitely more with Lawrence and then married Eliza and, they had money and this came with it. And so then his views shifted.
So they came with it. So it was kind of like, well, I might not be against it, but, I'm not for it.
It makes
but I'm not
my
gonna be
life
so much
easier.
against
It makes my
because-
life easier. So, I'm not going to rock the boat here.
Right, but he also
and-
didn't want to rock the boat with his father-in-law.
Exactly. So I think there's a lot, and I wouldn't even want to pretend to know or to have any kind of intelligent discourse on that because
Right.
what do I know? I haven't looked into it very deeply, and I'm
Right.
sure there's multiple layers on it. But I think the fact
Many.
is, every important man on that stage, right, at that time, Washington, Madison, all of them owned slaves.
Right.
I mean, it was ubiquitous. Doesn't make it right, doesn't make it okay, but this country was founded largely by slaveholders.
Right, so there's that. That's part of what they take so much flack for. Is it's a major portion of these people's lives per se
That we
There's a
just-
major thing.
that we just
kinda
lovingly edit out.
We just skip over because we're trying to tell
Because it's
this part of the
easier.
story.
Yeah.
It's easier because otherwise it's a 6-hour play. So you know what I mean. So you have to the story they're trying to tell is how they formed the country, how they formed the politics and the
messier.
Well, it's messier, but it's also like, I mean, I think the reality is you can't say that they were if they were not part of this upper echelon in the system, they wouldn't, and made possible by these people on the bottom working,
Yep.
right? Enslaved people, they wouldn't have been able to do these things. So you can't take that away.
Right.
You can't, ignore
Lovingly
that.
edit it out of the
You
story.
can't- but at the same time, you have to because it's not a socio-political drama. So, but I think that that's the reality of life. And I think that if you want a fuller telling of things, you have to read biographies. You have to delve into history. You can't depend on a play.
you need to read a book on each person.
You know what I mean? You can't
You can't just
depend
read
on
one book either.
You can't just read one book on each person. You also
Yeah.
have to figure out who's doing the biography, what their views are, and where they're coming from.
Right,
Like,
so it's
you
how can
have
we
to
expect
edit.
how can we expect a 2.5-hour play?
Right. I
to
mean,
do all
that's
that? When
and
you
that's
said there are some
reality.
books that won't even.
And realistically, like what we were talking about before, right? There's no one who isn't problematic in some way. And this doesn't excuse it. This doesn't make it okay.
No.
But you have to also take the positive things people were able to do and look at them with, contrast them with the bad.
Right.
And, I mean, there are extreme examples in this life of people who the bad totally outweighs the good. But for most people, you've got both on both sides.
Yep.
And you have to take that into account.
I just think that for me, and maybe it's because I'm a little bit more idealistic or I'm a little bit younger, but I think that if we are doing, and now I get it, this wasn't the medium for it, but if we are like generally as a group trying to have a more realistic view of what happened and talk about privilege, you also, when you're talking about the founding of America, you also have to talk about slavery.
So that's kind of the point. This isn't necessarily meant to be the most realistic
Mm-hmm.
because so much was changed and artistically changed and who the people were doing certain things. You know what I mean? So when they confront him in the office, right, to tell him we know we thought you were stealing money because he was getting, that wasn't them.
No,
right?
none of them did that.
It
It was
wasn't
two
them.
other-
But they weren't going to introduce the
Yeah.
people who did it just to add for that one
Yeah.
part.
Yeah.
So you're changing so much of the history to make a musical, to make an amazing.
To make it fit.
To make it fit
Exactly,
within your
to make
time
it
frame
fit.
with the actors you have, and then there's only so much, right? And you can't make everything perfect. I mean, there are movies
Yeah.
that don't do that. That can spend longer. There are serials
I mean,
You know
but
what I mean? Like
I also think the
miniseries
medium
that go longer that
Yeah.
don't.
I also think the medium to talk about privilege, though, is not, the
It's
place we
not
need to
Hamilton.
start. But the place where we need to start talking about it is really in school, right?
Well, yeah.
Right.
And in the educational system, if we're going to make a difference, like that's the place it needs to be. But that's not the purpose
I
of
also
this.
think
but
like it could be you can do it in a play. It would have to be longer, but I don't know that wrapping hip hop music around it, because then it levels up the fun and the excitement and the you know what I mean your enjoyment of it. That's really not a topic to be talking about in an enjoying, fun, upbeat. Wow, this I can't wait to sing about this way.
But I think that anyone who ever rapped would go against that, because if you listen to Biggie or Tupac, or again, not super well versed in this, they rapped about really serious things in difficult times and times in their lives that were really hard. So I think that is the medium in some ways. But
if it was talked about from their point of view.
Yeah.
But this is not. This is talked about from the white people point of view.
Well, yeah, from the
done by
owners.
non-white people.
Yeah.
But talked about
Yeah.
from the white point of view. So
Yeah.
that would almost be appropriating that music to
Well,
talk
and I
about
think
slavery
there's
from a white
this,
person's
like,
point of view. Like,
you
how
know,
dare you?
And there's also there are the little jabs, like when Jefferson's singing his song and he's like, "Sally, be a lamb, won't you?" and open that. Like, there's a, like, I'm going to acknowledge, like, your life was made possible by Sally Hemings, who was your slave girl, who you at 14 you began to have a relationship with, which I can't even call it a relationship.
You can't call it a relationship.
I know, but I don't want it.
Relations.
I don't. Thank you. Relations. I don't want to. That's not the purpose of this, right? Is not to get into that, but I'm trying to be careful here with my words. But that the relations began at that point,
Right.
and that's there were little jabs like that. But I think too, it's also, it's a difficult thing. It's a difficult thing to you have to be able to acknowledge it in some way, and
While not making the entire show about it.
well,
Because it is. It just if you're gonna do it, then that subject deserves its
Yeah.
own spotlight, its own play, its own telling.
not a minor, exactly,
Not a minor
nod.
portion of a bigger
Yeah.
No, it
story. That
deserves
is
to be
way
talked
too
about.
big of a
Exactly.
story to tell.
Not a minor
While
nod
trying to
in
talk
this.
about
Exactly.
the government and the banking and
Yeah.
and his affair with this woman.
No, and I think
It
that was
it diminishes it way too much.
and that was some of his point when he was talking about it. Like, I want to be, if you want to treat this subject, we need to treat it and give it the treatment it deserves, not some like little nod in this.
Right.
Because that's not fair to
one
this.
act or one song.
Because that's not fair to this,
Right.
to the subject and
Right.
to the seriousness of it. So you leave it out. And, you're going to get flack no matter what. No matter what decision you
doesn't matter
make,
these days.
someone is going to.
Someone gets pissy
Someone's
about
gonna be
it.
mad.
Someone's going to disagree, and that's okay. You know what? We can all have opinions.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, we just don't need to. We have the internet now. We can all discuss them.
Yeah,
And-
everybody
There's
has a
Reddit.
voice.
You can have a ton of different threads.
Everybody
That's
has
right.
a voice.
Well, but that it is what it is.
It is.
So-
It is what it is, and that's a great way to end the show. It is what it is. So
It
Hamilton
is what
overall.
it is.
Amy, give us your final. You love it. It's your. Where do you rate it?
I love it. I think it's one of the best newer musicals that I've seen.
Certainly something you'll rewatch over and over again.
Yeah, that I have.
Like I said, I'm not a musical person, but I rewatch it on my own. Even
Yeah.
when you're not around, I'll just start watching it. I get in the mood, or I listen. Like I said, I listen to the soundtrack in my car. So I'm with you. It's definitely high up on my list. Sam, gonna finish watching the rest of it?
Definitely gonna finish it, but I want to carve out enough time to watch it in full, and then maybe have enough time to rewatch specific parts, just
Yeah.
because of the way that I take in and I process the information. It's movement first for me.
I love
it. It's not really about the story. It's about the movement that I'm seeing.
I said to her, "You're not watching." She goes, "Yes, I am." We were watching My Shot. It's what were you saying to me? They're doing a dance in 3.
Okay, this is going to be way too nerdy for most of the people listening, but basically Balanchine came up with this rule: when you're showing someone a movement or a particular skill, you want to show it in 3 for someone to take in what's happening. And they do that a little bit and set up that pattern in My Shot right in the very beginning, but they definitely break it up through, and it's not what happens throughout the entirety of the thing. And I could spend probably just 30 minutes alone breaking down all of the nods to Fosse throughout the second act, but that's just, it is what it is.
Okay, that's not what I was looking for. But anyways, you made some specific comment to me about how the dancing was going, and I was like, "Wow, I would never have thought of that."
Well, that's why we had Sam. That's
Yeah.
why we had Sam on the show. All right, so I'm gonna take us out with "You'll Be Back" from The King. What do you think? Want to hear that one?
Go ahead.
That's
Yeah.
still one of my favorites. Let's do it.
price of my love is not a price that you're willing to pay. You cry in your tea, which you hurl in the sea when you see me go by. Why so sad? Remember we made an arrangement when you went away. Now you're making me mad. Remember, despite our estrangement, I'm your man. You'll be back, soon you'll see. You remember you belong to me. You'll be back, time will tell. You remember that I served you well. Oceans rise, empires fall. We have seen each other through it all. And when push comes to shove, I will send a fully armed battalion to remind you of my love. Da 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 da.
There's the king for you. Go watch the show. Go get Disney Plus. Watch the musical. If you love it, we want to hear from you. If you don't love it, we want to hear from you. Send us a line on engage@entertainmentrants.com. All right, check in with our social media. Leave some comments. We're on Entertainment Rants on Instagram, Entertain Rants on Twitter. Although we don't do a lot on our Twitter, we really heavily do Instagram, so you can really find us on there. We'd love to hear from you if you'd like to be on a guest on our show. If you have a particular entertainment topic that you're really passionate about and you want to talk to us about, hit us up. Go through our website and let us know what you want to talk about. So I want to thank Amy and Sam both again for being here. Thank you.
Glad to be here.
All right, guys. Till next time.
All right, everybody. Go out there and continue to keep ranting.